That's a different notice. Camera failed. That's neat. All right, so the population. So this is, they just tell you what they're interested in, which is the way that life works. Gee, I want to know this. You got to be able to figure out all this shit from that. So of course the population is going to be all the clients of the fitness center. You guys with me? That's the group that they want to describe. So it doesn't say that anywhere in the problem, but it gives you enough information to figure that out. So the sample, this is where you could either give sort of a definition or you can give an example. So what's the definition of a sample? It's of the population. So you could just say for part B, for number 42, the sample would be a subgroup of all the clients of the fitness center. Or you could say 90 randomly selected clients of the fitness center. That would be an example of a sample, because it says give examples where appropriate. Do you guys understand so far? This is the way I operate. You have to know what the definition is so you can use it. I pretty much never ask you to define it on a quiz or a test. You just have to be able to use it correctly. Okay, I like it. And to be really honest, I wish they would have asked E and F before C and D, because that's kind of how it goes. We have a group we want to say something about, we have a group we're going to work with. I then ask them a question, collect the answers, and then analyze it. So it's population, sample, variables, the question, data is the answers, parameter statistic is what I do with those answers, right? But oh well, they got it out of order. It's free, you got to give them a break. What would the parameter be? Well, it's got to show up in your answer, because the parameter is supposed to describe the population. So you look back at what you wrote in part A, that better show up. What is it I'm trying to say about them? What is it I'm trying to say about that population? What's it say? You can just steal from what it says. What are they interested in? Not how much. You're like, what do you mean not how much? The mean amount. Beautiful. Parameter and statistic will almost always be a mean or a percentage. It's analysis you did on the data. All right, so in this case, the parameter is the mean amount of time that it's parameter, so it describes the population. What was the population? All citizens. All citizens of the... Some people seem like they live in a gym, but all clients of the fitness center. So the parameter would be the mean amount of time that all clients exercise in the center each week. You guys with me so far? So parameter statistic, they're always a mean or a percentage. Of what group? Well, parameter of the population, statistic of the sample. So the statistic is going to sound just like what I just said. The statistic would be the mean amount of time that a subgroup of the fitness center clients work out each week. Or if I wrote my sample as 80, or what did it say, 90 randomly selected, my statistic would be the mean amount of time that the 90 selected clients worked out each week. You guys with me? So it's up to you how you word your sample. That better show up in your statistic answer. Does that make sense? That's what tells me you understand what the shit a statistic is you're connecting it to the sample. I like it. What's the variable? Now we got to back up a little bit. What would we have asked these people? Once I get my little sample, once I get my little sample of people, what do I ask them? Yeah, so the variable would be the amount of time a client exercises each week. You guys with me? Anybody work out at a gym? Anybody, no matter what time you go, are there people you see? This happens to me. No matter what time I go, there's a couple people that are just there. And they don't work there. And I'm like, you live here. And I never see them work out. They're just walking around talking to me. Anyway, sorry. It doesn't really bug me, but it does. So the variable would be the amount of time a client works out each week, because that's related to the question you would ask. The data, don't say the same thing you just did. The data, that's where you have to give examples, because the data has to be answers. So just give me an example of an answer. Somebody could say.
They work out for 5 hours.
Beautiful. 5 hours. 20 hours. 0 hours. I just like to say I belong to a gym, right? I belong to a gym. Because there are people that belong and don't go. Just like to pay money. I don't know. Yes?
So the variable is a single client?
Yes, because the variable is related to the question you ask. And when you ask a question, you're asking one thing, one person.
Nice.
Yeah. So if my question was going to be, how long do you work out each week? The variable is the amount of time a client works out each week. Because that is the thing that could have multiple values. One question, multiple answers. So why do we call it a variable? Because that's what a freaking variable is. It has multiple values, right? Maybe. That's what a variable is related to the question, because the question could have multiple answers. Question, variable, answers, data. Okay, I like it. You guys doing all right? It's like we're almost 1/16 of the way through the semester. Yes?
So for parameters, if you want to say like the actual amount of time, like the mean time is when
We don't know. So you don't have to make something up for that. In fact, don't. Yeah, that part is just what is it as an idea. Later you're going to be calculating stuff because they're going to give you actual data to work with. Yeah. Here though, the data you have to give me values. A couple, like 5 hours, 17 hours, 0 hours, right? Just give me a few examples of what answers could be. I like it. You guys doing all right? A few guys? Okay. All right. Yeah, so they all work that same way. So I think you have to do 44. I can't remember which ones I gave you, but anything about that section of problems? Is that, if you've tried those problems out, does this help you? Because sometimes people will give me this work and they'll have one answer for each one. No, there's A through F. You got to answer that for each one. I like it. Kick ass. Anything else from homework stuff? Yes?
Can we go over the first 1 through 5 problems? Just kind of look at it.
Sorry. The smart ass me in like, we can look at it there. So this, be careful, this of course refers to the situation down here. And now that we went through that number 42, I'm hoping it's going to help us with this. It's the same idea. The population is the group that they selected their samples from, the doctors, and of course that would be all AIDS patients. So I just gave you an answer there, number 1, if you're paying attention. 2, they actually give you specifically what the sample was. They tell you don't have to make something up. They tell you what it was, right? Yeah. And then parameter is what they want to say about everybody. Statistic is what they're going to say about the sample, so forth. Is that cool? Okay. I like it. And of course, they don't ask you data because that's what they give you. So that'd be kind of silly. Give me some data. Well, it's right there. Okay, maybe. Anything else? Homework? Okay. Let's get back in. We left off in the exciting world of definitions. We have a few left to do. Where's that side of it? Oh, yeah. Okay, that'll work. So the last thing we did last time was we talked about data. Right, we talked about what we just did, basically. You got all the way through data. So now we have to kind of break down variable and data. We can have quantitative. Oh my God. Oh yeah, this is left over. Poor little dead worker. There we go. Dude. Quantitative and quality. By the way, it's been a while since I taught 2 sections of the same class, so I do have 2 stats sections. So it's a little weird for me because I'm like, I just said this yesterday. Oh yeah, it was a different group of people. So let me keep on track. Yes.
What does that mean? What do you, like, how are there 2 sections for the same class?
No. I have this class,
Oh.
and then I have one that meets Monday, Wednesday at 7 a.m.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 7 a.m. Oh yeah. And it's full, so it's crazy. All right. So quantitative and qualitative data. Quantitative, what's the root word of that? Quantity, I like it. So what kind of thing would quantitative data be? I hear several almost words. Numbers, I like it. I think I heard something else that was good. Amounts, measurements, yes. All right, so quantity makes it sounds like measurement. So this is truly numerical. So what's a number that's not actually numerical? That sounds kind of freaky, but anybody play any sports? Do you guys have like numbers on your uniform? Yes, what number are you?
For 74.
74, what number are you? 1, oh watch out. If I did 74 minus 1, I get 73. Does that mean shit? No, don't mean shit. Doesn't mean that you're 73 times better than him or vice versa or whatever. You guys with me? A little bit? So those aren't really numbers. They're names. That's your name. There goes number 74, right? That's another way to reference you. You guys kind of with me? Or like zip codes, social security numbers, you know, like 1984, that's our name now. No, not really, but oh well. Okay, maybe. So quantitative is truly numerical. Truly. So very often it's measurements. For example, height, weight, length, so forth. Number of cars in the parking lot. That's truly numerical because if one lot has 80 and the other one has 78, that one has 2 less. I can do numerical stuff to it and it makes sense. So then what would qualitative be? I pretty much gave it away. There's a quality to them. So the numbers that weren't numerical, they were names. So qualitative is name data, categorical data. So for example, hair color, jersey number, social security number, the name of a car, right? Go to BMW, that's qualitative. I can't do BMW minus Hyundai. I just like to say Hyundai. Cool. All right, so that's 2 big ways to break them down. We're going to break it down even further because we're crazy. Levels of measurement. That's almost a word over there. That's a little closer to a word. Okay. So there's 4 levels of measurement. They build on each other. The most basic is like there's nothing I can do with it. The most basic is called nominal. And the next one up from that is called ordinal. I like to do these in pairs. These are like qualitative. Anybody like Stephen King? Anybody know Stephen King? Okay. Anybody ever heard of Richard Bachman? You want to know something interesting? Richard Bachman is Stephen King. Richard Bachman was Stephen King's pen name. And in French, to make it all sound nifty, plume de nom. So nom is name. Nominal is name data. If you love Stephen King and you never read any Richard Bachman books, do that shit. That's a young-ass Stephen King, and those books are freaky. And you're like, his books are freaky. I'm like, well, they're extra freaky. If you don't like Stephen King, don't read Richard Bachman. Okay, little service announcement. So that's name data. So that would be, again, like hair color, type of car, so forth. Just pure names. So if I started listing off authors, like Stephen King, I've forgotten all the authors in the universe, John Steinbeck, Richard Kadri is one of my favorites. You probably don't know who the hell he is. Are you guys worried that I'm not putting them in some kind of order? Is that... No. And of course, the next level is ordinal, and it kind of makes sense that the idea with this one is they have to be in a certain order to make sense. So if I start up listing hair colors in this room, you guys aren't going to freak out. Whoa, brunette comes before bald, or the other way around, whatever, right? You guys kind of with me? So there's no order they have to be in. But so what would be ordinal data? Have you ever gone to a restaurant and there's a little card on the table that says, please rate your experience? I don't know, it's been a while since I saw those, but it says poor, fair, good, excellent. So what if you sat down and it said good, excellent, poor, fair? When you kind of go, wait, what are you trying to do? Have you guys ever evaluated faculty before? You get that sheet and you got to fill in the bubble. And it goes strongly disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. So what if you sat down and get one and they had rearranged those? You'd go, what are you guys trying to do? This guy sucks. And I start filling in these. No. Right? Are you guys with me? So that data, that ranking data is definitely type of ordinal. If there's a ranking to it, it's ordinal data. I like it. So for example, this would be, so there's an order, inherent order. So any kind of ranking. If I gave you a list of car names that were in alphabetical order, that does not make it ordinal. Did they have to be in alphabetical order? Hell no. You wouldn't go, this doesn't make any sense. No. Yeah, I like it. Maybe. All right. The next two are related to quantitative. And when I say interval, anybody have any memories of interval from algebra?
Like interval notation.
Interval notation, kick ass. Beautiful. Yeah, exactly. Interval notation. So interval notation, you guys remember interval notation at all? The parentheses and the brackets? And remember that shit? And it would be maybe parentheses 0, 7, right? So I want to reiterate something I said earlier. Every time I go a level up, it still is this. There's still an order to things that are in an interval of time. You can't experience 1998 before you did 1997. And some of you guys are like, I didn't experience either of those. Shut up. Right? There's an order to them. But it's more than just ordinal. Because for years, for example, would you tell me when you were born? Is that right?
2001.
2001. Why do I ask the question? If you feel so old. I was born, I almost want to make you guys guess, but I was born in 1972. What's 2000? If I take the difference between from 1972 to 2001, how much time is in between those? It's not a hard question, hopefully. How many years? Huh?
29 years.
29. 29. You're trying to force me older. That's all right. I won't take it personally. So 29 years. So 2001 minus 1972, I get a number. But unlike the jerseys where the answer didn't mean anything, does the answer mean something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it tells us how much longer I've been on the earth than you.
Yeah.
I've been roaming the earth for 29 years more. There's a whole percentage. So interval, a way to remember it is, it's just like an interval from algebra. There's a length to it, and that's subtraction. So interval data is numerical data where subtraction makes sense. Not just can you do it. Could you subtract 2 zip codes? Could you? Would the answer mean anything? No. I remember one semester, real quick, I had like 3 girls from the women's basketball team. And they said, one was 14 and one was 11. I'm like, if you take 14 minus 11, what do you get? And they're like, we get Michelle, she's 3. I'm like, oh, shit. But, I was like, but the answer actually doesn't mean anything physically, right? For interval, it does mean something physically. It told me how much older I am. So interval is subtraction makes sense. So you start to see if I give you a problem and I ask you to identify what level it is, you can immediately eliminate two of them because you're like, is it truly numerical? Then it's not these. Is it not really numerical? Then it's not these. Maybe. Now, when I say the word ratio, mathematically, what operation does that denote? Ratio. Division. Fractions, which have division bars. So ratio is where division makes sense. And there's another thing for ratio. 0 means what it's supposed to mean. What is 0 supposed to mean? Yeah. Like, not that it has no meaning, but 0 means there is none of that shit. So if I said, what's the longest fish you caught? And I say 0 inches long. I caught no fish. So 0, that's why length would be ratio data. Because you can't have a fish that's twice as long as another one. So the division, if this fish is 10 inches long and this one is 5 inches long, that one's twice as long. 10 divided by 5 makes sense. But if I took 2001 divided by 1972, I get a number, don't I? Does that number mean anything? Nope. Does the year 0 mean the absence of time that has gone by? Year 0, is that when everything, is that the Big Bang? Year 0? And don't come at me with, I don't believe in your Big Bang, shut up. Is year 0 when everything started? Oh, I'm a little bit worried. There were no years before year 0. Have you guys heard of BC? Have you guys, right? Okay, I like it. So 0 is not where it's supposed to be, right? 0 doesn't mean the absence of time that's gone by. It's in the wrong place. That's why another reason why it's not ratio. Division doesn't make sense because 0 is in the wrong place. What about temperature scales? Stay with me now. How many temperature scales do you guys know? 3. I love it. Some of you guys might only know 2. Everybody should know Fahrenheit because we live in America, the last country to not use metric. Celsius, that's for every other country basically on the face of the earth because it goes from 0 to 100, base 10 because we have 10 fingers, right? And then there's a third one that not everybody knows. Kelvin. I'm not going to deal with Kelvin, don't worry. So if you don't know what Kelvin is, you don't have to suddenly learn it. But Kelvin is the temperature scale. Anybody heard of absolute 0? If it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit, does that mean what it's supposed to mean? Is that the absence of heat? Now, I know we live in San Diego, so you're like, that's mythical. But you could get colder than 0 degrees, right? But if it was 0 Kelvin, we're all dead. There's no energy. 0 Kelvin is the absence of energy. 0 Celsius, 0 in Fahrenheit, no. You can get colder. So it's not the absence of what is measured. So 0 wouldn't mean what it's supposed to mean. So for Celsius and Fahrenheit, that would be interval. I'm just going to put temperature because I'm not even going to talk about Kelvin after today. All right? In case you're like, this shit. Lord Kelvin, by the way. Oh, yeah. Yes?
But then technically, couldn't you have like negative Kelvins too?
No. That's the idea. Kelvin is a true scale. 0 means this is it. You with me? And it's not even, I want to be careful because it's not even because we can't have negative. You just happen to not be able to have negative. Because what would that mean? It's like we have energy and then we have no energy. What would negative mean? And then you can start talking about dark energy, whatever. No, stop. It's still energy. All right. But like, what about profit? Can you have negative profit? Yes. But what does 0 profit mean? You made
Nothing.
no money. So 0 means what it's supposed to. If I made 2,000 and next year I made 4,000, 4,000 divided by 2,000 means something. Made twice as much. So be careful. Profit is ratio because 0 means what it's supposed to. I happen to be able to go negative also, but that doesn't matter. 0 means what it's supposed to. And maybe. All right. That's this. desperately have to get into the homework and try this out so you can have some questions. I can't remember what section this is. I think it's 1, 2, or something. 3. It might be 1, 3. Yeah, it's 1, 3. I like it. Oh yeah, that's kind of freaking you out, right? Whoa. Oh, they're in. Everybody's got this here? All right. By the way, just to remind you guys, we will be taking a little field trip towards the end of class. I'm gonna probably let us out a little bit early. We'll see. Okay. Now. We got a little bit into this the other day. We didn't get deep into this, but there are several different ways to collect a sample. Good. I'm not the best at that. I just know shit. I don't know where it is. Let's see. I drink and I know shit. This might even be before that. Yeah, it's in 1-2, I think. Looks like it. Good Lord, book. You really got to get better formatted. Yeah, it's in 1-2. Thank you. What is the ultimate goal for sampling? What kind of sample do I really want to get? Random. I can't remember if I really made a point of what random means. For real, not YouTube random. It's a random. No, but real random. Right? So the kind of sample, the real goal is a random sample. And a random sample, did I say it? Anybody know what that would be? Good. It ends up being representative of the population, but how do I guarantee that that has the best chance of happening? Why were you guys a bad sample of Grossmont students? Say again? Good. So did every Grossmont student have a chance to be in the sample? No. So to try to get towards randomness, you have to let every element of the population have a chance, and actually they have the same chance to be in the sample. Every element. It's kind of a mathy word, but hopefully you're okay with it. Every person, everything, every part of the population has to have an equal chance. Jeff? To get into the sample. That's why if they actually do a phone poll, it's technically not random because, believe it or not everybody has a phone, period. If they do an online poll, that's even worse. That's why any poll done by any news organization, you can't really take it accurately because the viewers are biased nowadays. It used to be that way. Like it. That is the goal. There are several methods I could use to get there. I could just put names in a hat and pick them out. That would be purely random. Or I could do this. I could do something called systematic sampling. Systematic, automatic. Systematic would be if I go out and take the temperature every 10 minutes. Or if I selected every 5th student. So the idea behind systematic is every nth something. Every nth thing, every nth time unit, every nth whatever. Is everybody cool with me saying nth? Every 5th, 6th, 7th, so every nth, whatever you want it to be. So systematic involves taking every nth item, or time, or whatever, nth something. So every 7 feet, I collect grass. 7 more feet, I collect grass. I'm going to test it to see how much pesticides or whatever. Okay, baby. Some guys are glossing over. I don't blame you. Definitions. The next 2 I'm going to do kind of together. Stratified and cluster. And I have an interesting story about cluster. somebody from the military, one of my students told me about. Okay, ready? These two are very easy to mix up. They both start off the same way. They both break the population up into groups. Yeah. Break the population up into groups. So, for example, you guys are my population of my students in this class. You with me? That are here today, right? Are you still going? Yes. And you're naturally broken up into groups for me, for the most part. You're going to be in your own row. Look at you. And then there's rows of students, right? And then you're sucked in the first row. Are you guys with me? Yeah. So I could break you up into age groups. I could break you up into genders. I could break you up into hair colors. I could, whatever the shit. I'm just going to say rows because it's easier, right? Nobody has to move. Stratified would do this. I randomly select a couple rows or however many. Get out of here, Jeff. Let's start over. I was doing cluster. Stratified is from every row, I take a few people. So what is strata? Anybody know there's a geological interpretation of strata? Sometimes you hear about it in the atmosphere, the stratosphere. So that about layers. So strata is all about going all the way across every layer. So I take some from each. Some from each. So I'd take a couple here, a couple there maybe, and then that would go into my sample. Are you with me? So you do stratified sampling normally, like in a high school, if you want to set up a new policy that affects all students, you want to make sure you have some sophomores, some freshmen, some juniors, some seniors, right? So the freshmen would go, you didn't take any freshmen. And we're all like, you're freshmen, screw. All right. And then cluster, what I would do for cluster is what I started to do earlier. I would take a couple of rows randomly and then just take everybody from those rows. Now, are those two random? Are those two methods random? What does it take to be random? In this example, to be random, yeah, to be random though, it would be everybody should have an equal chance, right? So for stratified, when I took some from every row, is that random?
Yeah.
Yes, totally, of course, everybody had a chance. What about for a cluster, when I took entire rows?
No.
Ooh, I love this. Of course, yes. Tell me how you didn't have a chance. Right, I'm sorry, I'm not me. Tell me how any specific person didn't have a chance to be in the sample. Once I've picked my sample, don't go, I'm not in that sample, it's shit. No, did you have a chance? I picked a couple rows and took everybody. Could I have picked that row? Could I have picked your row? Yes, could I have picked your row? Is there anybody in here that did not have a chance to be in the sample? Anybody? You guys with me? Everybody had a chance, yes.
So, for like the example that you said earlier, like, choose this math class that's not represented, but
Because in
it's
that
not
case, the population was all gross month students. Anybody with me? What was my population?